All right, good evening, guys. How you doing? Yes, so another evening, a Sunday evening. I know there are none of you online already, so thank you so much for joining me. I'm sure there will be tons of questions because we've covered quite a lot over the last 2 weeks on the channel, just in terms of topics. So this is the perfect opportunity for everyone to ask questions and to get answers if you have them, and for me to kind of be like the financial GP or guru, if you will, to your financial questions. So, guys, feel free as usual. Literally, just push in your questions in via the chat, and we will get going shortly. So, how has everyone actually been? Okay, so this is great. Thank you so much. So, Drago, thank you so much, mate. So, one of the things that's happened, which has been very, very exciting for the channel, is that 2 months ago, I got an email from YouTube. And basically, YouTube have like a load of like features that you get access to as your account gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I got an email about 2 months ago. It's literally been 8 weeks. I've been thinking about this, thinking, right, okay, do I introduce like a members type kind of like package where we can build like more of a community together? You can have more access to me to ask questions and all this kind of stuff. And I finally got round to launching it today. So some of you may have seen the video that went live, I believe at 8 o'clock about an hour ago. So Drago, thank you so much for becoming a new member. I really, really do appreciate that. Thank you so, so much. But yes, guys, do check it out. Again, I just want to reiterate that all it's going to essentially do is just going to help you, or essentially encourage you, if you want to support the channel, to support the channel. The journey so far has been great here, and it's a lot of hard work though, producing content. I didn't quite realize it at the time when I first started, but you know, the keyword research, the editing, the recording, the research that you then have to do for you to record videos. It's a full-time job in itself. So having the memberships and having people be able to support the channel is a great thing, and I appreciate everybody who contributes. For the investors package, there's some really, really good stuff in there. There's a Discord group that you guys are going to have access to. You will also have access to my investment course, which I've referenced a number of times on investment videos. And as part of that, as a group, I will take you through every part of the investment course on a weekly basis via a membership only live. So you'll gain all of the basic foundational knowledge that you basically need to get your feet right, get the foundations right if you're looking to invest in the market. And the Discord group is where you can get all of that information off the back of that, ask a load of questions, and I can help you build portfolios and stuff like that. So it's going to be really, really exciting. And Jason, thank you so much, mate. I wasn't expecting to have 2 people join on the live this evening, so I really, really do appreciate it. But as ever, let's kick off with some questions. If you guys do have questions, feel free to pop them in the questions box here, and we will get going. And yeah, so look, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, guys. And I have to say, like, when I started this in January, I wanted to obviously impact people and, you know, share my experience and stuff, but it really has been amazing, and I really, really can't put into words how rewarding a lot of this has been, because I get messages, so many messages on Instagram every single day, and just the positive feedback, the positivity, it's so, so, so great. And literally, the channel is going to cross 5,000 subs in the next couple of days. So I really do appreciate everything that you guys do in terms of the engagement, watching the videos, commenting, sharing. I've actually signed up to a new analytics program, which gives me an insight into the amount of shares that I get on the channel. And they're way higher than I actually thought they were. And I have to thank you guys for it. So thank you so, so much. So there is one question here. Thank you, I appreciate that. Just wanted to ask about 2 things. 1, how do you recommend I invest responsibly? What are the best ESG funds? Okay, cool. So, ESG, let me just give you a little bit of an overview for people who may not know what ESG essentially means. So, ESG, it stands for ethical, social, and governance. Okay, so it's essentially a way of investing in companies in the stock markets where they use metrics that are not financial metrics or purely financial metrics to invest in companies. So, for example, you may have a company, or you may have, for example, a real passion for green energy, and you may not want to invest in companies that are polluting the environment. We all know plastics in the ocean, those kind of things. So with ESG, it is a way for you to invest where you basically invest with the outlook to say you will not invest in companies that have either pollution driven policies, or companies that have a policy that protects the environment. So there are three strands. There's environment, there's social, there's government. So obviously the environment side speaks to having a green energy policy within the business. The social side is very much about what the business is doing in the local environment, what is their social impact, and then governance also is about how the business is basically run. Do they have a diverse workforce, so on and so forth. So with ESG funds, there are a number of ESG providers out there at the moment. It used to be very unpopular. Now it's actually a lot more popular than it used to be. So more and more companies are providing ESG funds. So straight off the bat, depending on what you're looking to invest in, whether it's a pension fund, and I know the second part to your question here is around NHS pension, should be contributing to another pension scheme. Okay, cool. So if you're looking at pension specifically, if you're in NHS pension, you are going to have a final salary or defined benefit pension. What that basically means is that there isn't going to be a pot of money specifically set aside for you. Now, with ESG investing, let me just answer the first point. They're pretty much all of the providers that I can think of have an ESG offering now. So PensionBee have one. I'm pretty sure Moneybox have them. If you have a look at any of the big investment providers, so other people like Wealthify, they have an ESG. I'm pretty sure Plum have. I'm pretty sure Nutmeg have as well. So most of them will have an ESG proposition. The thing to watch out for is just to make sure that obviously it's within your risk tolerance. So ESG investments are typically at the higher end of the risk tolerance, or the risk appetite. So you'll be taking a little bit more risk. So just make sure that it fits you, and make sure that you do a cost comparison against the funds that you're looking to select as well, because oftentimes some of the ethical funds can be a little bit more expensive to run because there's a lot of background work that goes into the back of it. So a lot of the providers will have ESG funds. In answering the second part to this question, if I'm paying towards an NHS pension scheme as I work for the NHS, should I also contribute to another pension scheme? Yes and no. I would ask one question back to you. Have you had a forecast of what your NHS pension is likely to kick out? Because I think it's really, really important to bear in mind that there is a distinct difference between what you've got with the NHS, which is essentially a defined benefit, and the other kind of pension funds that are out there. So with a defined benefit, what it essentially means is that the benefit, so the income that the pension will kick out for you in 10 years or 15 years time, or whenever your retirement date is, that amount is going to be guaranteed. And this is really, really important thing to know. So the benefit you're going to receive from that pension is going to be guaranteed. Now, if you pay into an external pension, then you're not going to get that benefit. What you're going to do is they're called defined contributions, which means that the contribution that you're paying in is defined, but the outcome, the benefit at the back end is not. So it's really, really important to understand that, if you look at it from a very, very basic point of view, simple logical argument will say you should pay more into the NHS pension because you're going to have a defined benefit, a defined outcome from that pension, rather than having a defined contribution that doesn't give you any kind of defined outcome, if that makes sense. So I would definitely have a look at, first and foremost, trying to get a forecast of what your NHS pension is, to see what income it is, and also try and get them to run some calculations to say, well, if you were to pay extra in, what would it actually kick out in addition to what you're already going to get? Defined benefits are gold dust now. They don't exist. They're very, very hard to come by. I had someone message me this morning on Instagram asking me about a defined benefit, and he had been asked to move his pension from a defined benefit to a defined contribution, which at the time may have sounded like a really good idea, but ultimately, because the pensions are very, very different, he's given up his defined guaranteed benefits because he hasn't paid into that, he's paid into a new one. So definitely do those two things. Get a forecast first and foremost, and get them to forecast, if you paid extra in, how much it would give you. Once you know what that number is, then maybe come back to me, and then we can have a look at what the other options are. But defined benefits are gold dust, so I would really, my gut tells me you stick with it. You stick with it if you can. Hope that makes any sense, but just let me know if it doesn't, then we can go from there. Cool, right, okay. Good evening, guys. Sean, how you doing? New subscriber here. Would like to take on 0% credit card debt over 18 months in order to max out the stocks and shares lifetime ISA 4K. This would give me £1,000 bonus for the next year. Yes. Hi, Sean. Welcome, mate. Thanks for subscribing. So, let me just get this straight. So, you're looking to take out 0% credit card over 18 months. You're going to put it into a lifetime ISA. For £4,000, you're going to get 25%, which is £1,000. That's right. I guess my first question to you, Sean, will be: are you looking to use this for a house deposit? If so, what's your track towards buying a house? Is that 1 year, 2 years into the future? What's your timeline? Also, bear in mind as well that with the bonus on the lifetime ISA, you can't just take that money out, because you have to use it for the purpose of a house purchase. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to pay into a lifetime ISA because you are going to get the bonus, which you will, if you're not going to be using the money to purchase a home, when you go and withdraw the money, you're going to give up that £1,000 anyway. So it's really important to understand you're definitely using it to buy a house first and foremost, definitely, and also your track towards, buying your first home. And also make sure as well, whilst it's a sound idea, you're using 0% money, finance, to get almost a 25% return. Makes good sense. Also, just bear in mind, obviously, your repayment vehicles, how you're going to pay it back over a period of time. Hopefully, so you're not going to end up paying interest on that credit card. But let me just have a look here. I know you said something on here. Thinking of taking advantage of the 2K on credit card to move into a stocks and shares lifetime ISA. Yeah, okay. So also, Sean, if you are going to be looking at a stocks and shares lifetime ISA, you also need to bear in mind that you're going to have investment risk. So if you are doing this and put it into a cash lifetime ISA that doesn't have the investment risk, you're going to get the 25%, £1,000 from the government, which is fine. But you're going to have investment risk if you go into a stocks and shares lifetime ISA. So you just need to make sure that whatever option you go for, you are taking the right amount of risk for you to ensure that you're not going to kind of like overextend yourself, or possibly be in a situation where you lose money but then you've got to pay that money back on a credit card. Does that make sense? If not, just let me know and I can elaborate on it a little bit more. T, how you doing? Welcome, guys. If you've just joined us, thank you for dialing in this Sunday evening. Okay, Hype 86. Hello. How many months emergency fund do you recommend to save, and where do you suggest we keep the money? Okay, so with emergency funds, typically speaking, you want at least 3 months, at least. In a really good world, you want 6 months if you can go up to it, and then if you're looking at utopia, then 9, 12 months as well could be good, but you want at the very, very minimum 3 months. At the very, very minimum. If you can stretch to 6 would be great as well. It's just to make sure that, if something like COVID were to happen again and, you weren't able to work, you've got enough money to cover you. And I think for a lot of people, 6 months gives them that peace of mind. In terms of where to put it, I would never generally recommend people invest this kind of money, because it needs to be made available. It needs to be accessible, essentially. You need it for emergencies. So cash ISAs are a great place to put it. It will be tax-free. You're not going to get a lot of interest on it at the moment, but it will be accessible. It will be away from the tax man. So whatever little bit of interest that you do get, at least you're not going to be paying tax on it, essentially. So a cash ISA would be the best place for you to put that. And yeah, 3 months minimum, 6 months if you can stretch. If you've got the financial capability to put 9 months in, even better. 12 months would be amazing. I've only when I was advising, I only probably met one client who wanted 12 months worth of emergency fund, but that's because he just felt that's what he needed, and that's what would make him feel comfortable. So there is an element of, there isn't a scientific answer to it. It is really about what you feel comfortable with, but generally 3-6 months is pretty good. Okay, yeah, Sean, so you're buying in 3 years time. Yeah, cool, that's fine. So yeah, that makes absolute sense. Yeah, just bear in mind, obviously just make sure that you've got repayment strategy built into that. So make sure that you've got that in there, so that you're aware. Cool, thanks Pete. Just wanted to follow up on my question. What do you need to look for when comparing ESG funds across platforms? I've opened a Vanguard account, but not sure whether to keep it. Okay, so if you're selecting an ESG fund, the first thing you need to have a look at is, with all of the ones that you're looking at, so you're looking at Vanguard, you might be looking at maybe 2 or 3 others, make sure you get the fund fact sheet. So get the fund fact sheet and get that printed out, and that will basically tell you what the fund is basically invested, what the objective of the fund essentially is. So on the fact sheet, you're also going to have, like, if they've got any back-tested or historic investment performance, you'll see that, because you definitely want to see the projected or historic investment performance. And obviously, past performance is an indication to what's going to happen in the future. But what it will do, though, is it will help you have a clear idea of, if the markets were to perform like they had done in the last, say, 5 years or so, and the way their fund is built, it will give you a good idea of what it might behave like. If they've got actual data, that's even better, because then you can see whether, if, for example, in 2018 there was a really bad patch and they did really, really well in that patch, you'll be able to compare amongst the 3 or 4 that you're looking at to see who has a better kind of investment journey, and that's the important thing for you. So definitely have a look at the fund fact sheets, have a look at the cost. The cost will be on the fund fact sheet as well. A lot of these providers will provide things like videos if they do watch the videos, but essentially you want to kind of make sure that you have a really good idea of what the fund is designed to do, and you'll get that from the fund fact sheet. So performance you need to compare, also compare the costs. If you're going with Vanguard will typically provide these things at a really good rate. So yeah, just compare those and you should be good to go, really, to be honest. If you do have any preferences, see, ESG is quite a big field, so it depends on how they build their fund, whether they use a negative screening, positive screening. So negative screening is essentially where they say we won't invest in companies with tobacco or any companies connected with tobacco production, right? Positive screening is we will only invest in companies that do X, Y, Z. And then there's something in the middle which is called impact investing, which is where they basically have a look at the whole thing and say, well, actually, you know what, guys, you invest in tobacco, or you do this, or a prime example of it actually is animal testing, right? So they might say, okay, we know that you do animal testing, but they'll dig deeper and ask, well, what are they testing? Are they testing for a cure to cancer? So those kind of things also come into play. So you need to understand whether they're positive screening, negative screening, or whether it's just kind of like impact. You may not get full answers specifically without speaking to the actual provider, but generally speaking, very high level, fund fact sheet will give you a lot of information around what the objective of the fund is, the cost, the past performance, and that is a good place to start for you on there. So I hope that helps, but if not, literally just ping in some additional stuff and happy to address. Right, I'm just going back up, guys, because I think there's a few more that have come in here that I just need to get in as well. Right, Chantel, stocks and shares lifetime ISA versus stocks and shares ISA. Which one do you recommend to contribute to first, or both at the same time? Planning on using this to fund retirement along with my DB pension. Okay, so I have to be a little bit careful here because I don't want to give you specific advice because I don't know your full circumstances, but I'm going to give you some things to think about, and I'm just going to give you some information to hopefully frame this with the knowledge that you need so that you can kind of guide in the right place. Right, so think about the lifetime ISA. So the lifetime ISA is either going to be used for property purchase or it can be used for retirement. You have some limitations within your lifetime ISA. You can only contribute £4,000 per tax year. Okay, so that's April the 6th to April the 5th each year, £4,000. Now, you do have some restrictions around access, so on and so forth. Now, if you've got a defined benefit pension, Chantel, again, going back to the first question of what I explained in there, with a defined benefit pension, what you're going to have there is you're going to have a defined benefit at the back end, right? At the back end, so you know exactly what income you're going to generate over a period of time. Now, my key question to you will be: are you still working in that place where you've got the defined benefit, or are you not? And do you know how much the defined benefit is actually going to kick out? With pensions in general, you get more benefits. So with a lifetime ISA, if you pay it in, that's fine. Your income is going to be tax free at the back end, which is great. But you're not going to get any tax relief going in. You're going to get the bonus from the government, which is a little bit of tax relief, but it's not the same. You're effectively limited to £4,000. Now, depending on how much you earn, first and foremost, is a big part of this equation. If you're earning really, really well, and you might find yourself in a position where £4,000, you could potentially pay more than £4,000 into a pension each year, then a pension will serve you better, because the maximum you can pay into a normal pension is £40,000. So it's a magnitude of 10. And I explained this in one of my videos. So there are a lot of moving parts in this. My gut would be, I've got a load of follow-up questions. Are you still at the same place where you've got the DB pension? Can you still pay into it? Those are a couple of other things that would be worth in there. And also just bearing in mind, you've only got £4,000 within a lifetime ISA that you can contribute per year, which is great. With a pension, if you pay into a pension, you're going to get tax relief from the government, so you're going to get 25% from the government free going in, the same as what you would do with the lifetime ISA. But also with a pension, when you get to your retirement age, or at least at 55, by current legislation, if you've amassed, say for example, 50 grand, you can take 25% of that completely tax free. You won't be able to do that with a lifetime ISA. So there's a number of things to bear in mind here, and lots of moving parts. It can be quite complex. I need to know more about your circumstances. If you're not sure, this is where you need to go and see a financial advisor, like proper. And it depends on your age as well, how far you are to retirement. If you're 10 years less, then you definitely should go and see a financial advisor, because you need someone to look at this properly for you. So there's a lot in there. I know that there have been a few things that I've just pinged in here, so I'm just going to double check very quickly just to see if you've had any follow-ups. Yeah, still working. Aim to have 16k per year from DB retiring at 55. Chantel, very quickly, how far are off you from retirement? Really quickly, if you can ping that in, that would be great. And one thing that you definitely need to do is you definitely need to get a forecast done. So if you're 10 years or 15 years away, or even 5 years away, you need to know how much your defined benefit is going to kick out at your retirement date. So is it currently forecast to kick out £10,000, you're 25 years. So you've got loads and loads and loads of time. So you need to know how much is your pension, your defined benefit pension, projected to kick out for you in income. Because if we were going to do this from a financial planning point of view, so if I was advising you as your financial advisor, this would be the first thing I'm looking at. Right, how much are you going to get from your defined benefit pension? Then I'm going to be looking at, okay, so how much are you likely to rack up in state pension? Because that's going to be a certain amount. That's going to be anywhere between £7,000 to £9,000 per year. So when you're saying £16,000, you're going to have a large chunk of that come from your state pension. Then you're going to have some come from your defined benefit scheme. If there is any shortfall for any reason, then you would be having to look at other things that you can do to make that shortfall. At 16 grand, you probably don't have that much of a shortfall to make, but you definitely need to get some forecasts around how much is it likely to kick out for you, so that you can make some informed decisions now in terms of how aggressively you pay into your pension, be that either with your provider right now. If you are still there and they're contributing for you, then you should definitely consider to pay in as much as you possibly can into that pension right now, and not anywhere else, because essentially the money that you're putting in is going to build to a guaranteed outcome in the future in 25 years. And trust me, those pensions are few and far between now. So that will be my gut feeling. But let me know what you think. If you have any follow-up questions, let me know. And yeah, I'm happy to answer them. So let me just have a look on here and see where the next question is. Okay, Mr. Bow, Vanguard have 2 ESG funds. Yes, they do. They have. There was one, I can't remember the top of it now. I was looking at it last week. I'll try and find it a bit later on for you and have an air. So you get right. I have 4-year plan to save for a mortgage. I started putting money in a Vanguard and a Legal and General mutual fund, high return, high risk, predominantly tech shares and S&P 500. But considering to move everything to the government ISA with the 25%. Okay, what's your general opinion on mutual funds versus government shares for kids' term savings? Okay, so let me just go back on this very quickly. Just make sure I understand what you're saying here. You're saving for a mortgage and you're putting money into a Vanguard high risk. Okay, mainly tech, predominantly S&P 500. So you've got it mainly in the States. You're looking. I'll assume you're looking to buy a house, so you need 25%, which makes sense. So you're going to be putting into a stocks and shares LISA, I would imagine. Okay, so the second bit for kid term, I'm guessing you mean short term, right? Just clear that up for me. Midterm savings. Okay, cool. So for midterm savings. Right, so where it is right now, if you've got it in a high risk fund, then your timeline to purchasing a house is 4 years. Some may say that 4 years high risk is pretty risky, because you haven't got a 10-year timeline. You've not got a 10-year timeline. So you're going to need the money in 4 years' time. If anything happens in the next 4 years where the markets, just tumble off, let's just say, in year 3, the markets tumble off, you lose a load of money. You've only got 1 year to make that money up. Pretty high risk. So if you're investing for 4 years, and I talk about this on my investment course, I talk about time horizons. So the idea is that the longer you have to invest, so the longer you have, so 10 years, for example, if you're buying a house in 10 years, that's a long term. You can afford to take more risk. The shorter you are in your term, then technically speaking, you should be taking less risk, because you don't have enough time for the markets to falter, then for things to then come back. So you're in a high risk position at the moment. You're only in tech shares, which means only one sector. If anything happens around regulation for tech, you could be hit really, really badly. You're not very well diversified where you are currently. Who have you got this with? You can just let me know. Moving it into a lifetime ISA, for example, completely depends on who you're going to use and how the portfolio is built, right? So again, I teach this on the investment course. It's all about equities, shares, bonds, property, using asset classes to minimize your risk. So for you, because you're looking to buy a house, and I talked a little bit about this on the bond video when I talked about bonds versus stocks. What you want to do is you want to be able to use different kinds of bonds and assets to essentially help you meet your goal. So the question is, right, you need your deposit. How much do you deposit? If you buy investing, how much do you need to return each year? If the answer to that question was, well, I need to return 7% per year, then what you might do is you might say, well, okay, let's go and hunt down a bond that will pay me 3%. That way you've got 3% in the bag, and you only then need to find 4% from holding mutual funds or returns within your stocks and shares lifetime ISA. All these things are really, really important. If you're going to go into a mutual fund is great because it's going to offer you diversification, right? So I did a video where I explained ETFs, mutual funds, index funds. Mutual funds will give you a lot of diversification because with a mutual fund, you're buying a basket of companies all in one go. It's kind of like having a box of Quality Street, right? You've got loads of different suites in there, loads of different companies. You'll get loads of diversification in the mutual fund. You will get it at pretty good price as well. So you get access to these funds, not paying access to these companies, not paying huge amounts in costs. Whereas if you're doing government shares, so government shares you'll be looking at government bonds specifically, because you can't buy shares in government. So you're looking at government bonds. Government bonds can be used to offset and manage your risk. So like in the example that I gave you there, you're looking for 7% return, you need 3%, you might find a government bond that will give you 3%. So all you need to do is make 4% from your mutual fund. So using those two things together would make sense from a technical point of view when you're building a portfolio. But at the same time, it's really important that you know what you're doing and you know exactly in what proportions you're buying them to get you to your goal. And you're also going to need to actually monitor it, because you've got a 4-year timeline. You need to make sure that you've got a plan, a target, and every single year when you review it, you are actually making strides towards that target and making adjustments where you need to ensure that you don't falter or you miss the mark because you need to buy a house in 4 years. That's a very, very long-winded answer. But the context and the nuance is really, really important. I know I may have just bamboozled you there. So if you do have any follow-up questions on anything that may have confused you in that, pop them in here, then we can come back to it a bit later on. Right, okay. Could you also... Okay, right, so here's a follow-up question here. So thanks, Pete. Could you please also explain YTDs and what is a good YTD rate? Are you talking... YTD to me means year to date, right? So just clarify for me whether that's what you mean. And then I can come back to that a bit later on the questions, okay? So just clarify for me before I answer. Ovidius, hi Pete, me here again. Welcome back, mate. Was wondering what your opinion on investing in funds versus individual stocks for someone who is just starting. This is a really good question, mate. Right, okay, so if you are a complete beginner, the best way for you to begin would be to essentially invest in index funds first. Why? Because with an index fund, you are going to be buying a whole bunch of companies. So you can get different kind of index funds. You can get the index fund for the FTSE 100. You can get an index fund for the FTSE 250. You can get an index fund for the S&P 500. You're going to get a whole host of different companies for your money. Again, it's like having a box of quality streets, right? Loads of companies in one wrapper. If you go and buy individual stocks, essentially all you're doing is you're buying one suite. That's it. So it's like taking out one suite out of the quality street box and investing all your money in that. What you ideally want as a first-time investor is you want the whole box of quality suites. So you've got your money going into all of these companies. So as a first-time investor, that's what I would say is the smart move. But I know that places like Trading 212 and Free Trade now allow you to invest for very, very small amounts to get your feet wet, to kind of build your confidence. And there's a good argument to do that as well. But I just feel that for you to get full confidence, to make sure that you're balancing your risk, minimizing your risk, an index fund is an easier way for you to go. It's a better way for you to go. It allows you to build your confidence, understand how things actually work, in opposed to just buying individual stocks. Because look, I know people who have bought, Tesla, and I did a lot of obviously Tesla videos around the share split and so on and so forth, and people get excited about that. Ike, thank you so much for that donation. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. All these things really do help the channel. But at the same time, if you go and put, 100 quid in Tesla stock, then Elon tweets and you lose 80 quid, that's all your money pretty much gone. I mean, the smart move is, you put 100 quid into the index fund, in opposed to having just one company that you have a part or share in, you've got 100. So it doesn't matter if one company goes down. You've got 99 others that could do really, really well and give you a positive return. So that's my answer for you. But I mean, again, you've got to find out what is right for you. And I need to be careful about not giving you actual advice. But those are my thoughts. And those are the reasons why, as a first-time investor, I would probably go down index funds first. Obviously, I do have a portfolio with Hargreaves Lansdown and Trading 212 where I do hold some individual stocks. But most of my money is actually in index funds, mutual funds, because that's the way I like to invest. Diversification, spreading the risk, holding as many companies as possible across different regions, across different sectors is the smart move to make. So those are just my thoughts. Let me know if you have any follow-up from that videos. Cheers. Sean, Pete, have you considered reviewing money management apps such as Money Hub or Money Dashboard, or fintech banks such as Monzo or Starling? You know what, Sean? I haven't just yet. I've done Moneybox and other people like that, but fintech specifically, I haven't at this point in time. I'm actually with Starling, to be fair, for my current account. So they're really, really good, and I've got my business account with them as well. They're really, really good, and I love the way I love new technology. Like I've worked for banks, and banks are great and everything like that, but they are just like really, they're old school, innit? Like they're just large and cumbersome. They can't move. They're not as fluid as the new fintech. So the new fintechs, I love things being on my phone. So anything that's on my phone that is easy accessible, I absolutely love it. And Starling's great. But that is definitely one that I can put on the list. Money Dashboard and Money Hub are two that I've recently come across my radar, because I'm doing a little bit of work with a business, and we're looking at budgeting apps and stuff like that to introduce into a workshop that we're doing next week and a couple of weeks after that. So that's definitely something I'll put on the list, Sean. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. You know what? I would say your username, but I don't want to get it wrong, and that's why. Because normally when I answer questions, I say who it's actually come from, but I do not know how to begin to pronounce your username. So apologies, but thank you so much for that donation. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Type in your first name for me, will you? And I'll address you by your first name. Maybe that's a good solution. There you go. So Chantel, still working. 16K, we've covered that. 55 videos. I've got an account with Vanguard and invest in a few index funds, but was wondering if you'd recommend investing in companies, and what's the best way of doing it. Okay, so if you wanted to invest in like individual companies, then you can use Trading 212. However, I would say, like, don't go and put a large chunk of your money into this, right? If you've got money with Vanguard, it will be invested, it will be an index fund, it will be doing really, really well. It may not be doing really, really well right now, but the long run, it should do really, really well, because you bought a multitude or a mixture of companies, right? If you're going to use, you want to get into investing in individual companies, then Trading 212, free trade. You can use my link to get a free share with free trade. I'll find it and pop it into the chat before we finish this. But you can use that essentially, but just be mindful of, don't put all of your cash in there. Don't concentrate all of your funds in there. You want to get a really nice split and balance between the two. So just bear that in mind, okay? Right, okay, 25 years to retirement, we covered that. Al, hi Pete, hope you're well, mate. Wanted to ask, have a long-term account with Trading 212, which I deposited £300 into each, each month. They only cover you up to £85,000, and you can't transfer your portfolio. You can't transfer your portfolio? I'm sure you must be able to transfer your portfolio, mate. You may not be able to do it in Trading 212 directly, but if you went to someone like Hargreaves Lansdown, for example, you would be able to transfer money from Trading 212 to Hargreaves Lansdown, and Hargreaves Lansdown will initiate the transfer for you. So with these kind of things, how it typically works is you will ask the person that you want to transfer your funds to initiate the transfer. You can't do it with Trading 212 because they don't know who it is. They don't understand where it's going to, who the provider is. So traditionally how it works is you would find a new provider. So if it's Hargreaves Lansdown, for example, you would then open an account with Hargreaves Lansdown, and then you'll request a transfer of X amount of your portfolio from Trading 212 to them. So you will be able to transfer your portfolio. They just can't hold into your cash just like that. And if you're not using their Invest ISA, then you need to be mindful of capital gains tax when you liquidate your portfolio. You're going to have obviously dividends allowance, but the dividends allowance isn't really that much these days. So that's one thing that's worthwhile bearing in mind for you, Al. But yeah, I mean, look, £85,000 is the max, mate. There's a few providers that give you more than £85,000 as the protection from the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, but they are few and far between. I know PensionBee certainly does, but they're the only one that come to mind at the moment. Most of them stay at the standard. So yeah, hope that helps. Let's have a look and see what else we've got here. I'm looking at two screens, guys, so just bear me one moment while I try to get these things moved around so I've got the right one in the right place. let's move that over there. Okay, cool. Right, let's have a look and see where we are. Okay, there's quite a few here. All right, okay. This is amazing, guys. Thank you so much for so many questions. Right, Chantel. Thanks for your help, Pete. That makes sense. I will definitely speak with them, check forecast to see how I can maximize the DB as much as possible. Yeah, that will be the smart move to do, Chantel. So I'm glad that you found that useful. Mert, hey Pete, what do you think about the latest events happening for Facebook on censoring the Hunter Biden article in the New York Post? You know what? It's a tricky one, and it's a really, really tricky one. And I think ultimately, the whole point of Facebook is obviously that people will be able to communicate and actually have conversations without being censored, right? But at the same time, if you remember everything that's gone through, that happened with the last election and Cambridge Analytica and all of the misinformation that's happened so far, I think whilst they are providing a platform for people to have a conversation and to, engage and connect with each other, they do also have to be a little bit careful about disinformation and so on and so forth. Are they doing the right thing? I think they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. It will be interesting to see what the hit, if any, would be on the stock price. But remember, only earlier this year, they had the stock price take a bit of a hit because they didn't want to do anything about it. So I think they're backed into a corner right now where if they do something, they're gonna piss people off, really. And if they don't, they're also gonna piss people off. But I think it's also very, very important as well that it's not just as simple as, they're censoring, articles and so on and so forth. Facebook, I believe, has become a bigger and more powerful entity than it probably intended to be in the first place. And that's just a function of being really successful, and to a certain extent them getting a little bit too big and too large and being too ingrained into our everyday lives. So it's going to be an interesting one. God knows what's going to happen with the election. I think Biden's out in front at the moment, but anything can happen. Anything can happen, and it will be interesting to see what happens with the stock markets once all of that balls off as well. So we'll see. But that's my take. Not saying that I'm right, but it's a tricky one. I don't think I'd want to be in their position having to deal with this. So yeah. So Al, I remember you mentioned you have shares with Hargreaves Lansdown. Would you recommend them if I know what shares I want to buy? Looking for 25 to 35 year total. Oh God. Okay. So Hargreaves Lansdown, they've been around for a while, mate. But I mean, they do really good stuff. I won't say that they don't. But just you pay for each trade, and it's like £11.95 or £12.50 or something like that for you to place a trade. So if you're happy to pay the cost, which at the time I'm happy to pay the cost, no problem whatsoever. But one thing that they did that really kind of annoyed me, and Trading 212 were a lot quicker on, was with the whole. So I've got Apple stock and I've got Tesla stock. Now, as you know, they both did a stock split 2 months ago, something like that. Trading 212 had the new shares in the account literally a few hours after the split happened. Hargreaves Lansdown took 3 days to administer the new shares, which meant that for Tesla, where I was up so much, and I was thinking, well, I might profit take, I couldn't do it because they hadn't given me the shares that I was due. So I was kind of stuck, and that really kind of annoyed me a little bit. I think because they are large and because they've been around for a while, they are a little bit cumbersome. They're kind of like the banks. They're a little bit cumbersome. They can't really move and act as quickly as you would like, but they are still very, very good. They've been around for a very, very long time. They have a host of resources that they give you, reports and all this kind of stuff that Trading 2 doesn't do. So would I recommend them? Yes, but it's also important that you understand that, sometimes it's not the best. If you're happy with it, that's fine, but test them out, see how you find them, and go from there. Okay, I have this with Plum, the app. Right, let me just have a look quickly. Let me just go back up. Okay, cool. That's fine. You're just validating something there. Okay, thank you very much. Right, so where are we with these? Right, Sean, are Plum Pocket Savings taxable? I know you did a video on this. So As long as it's within an ISA wrapper. So if you're doing pocket savings and it's in an ISA account, it will be. If it's not, then it's not going to be. It has to be within an ISA wrapper. I can't remember whether pocket savings is within the ISA account that you hold with Plum or not. I can't remember. So if it is within an ISA account, it will be tax free. If it isn't, then it won't be. But yeah. ETF and gilts for the downside. I think, Dean, you're just mentioning something there as a suggestion to someone else on there. So yeah, I mean, gilts for the UK too for the downside. Yeah, that's fine. Global ETFs might help. So global ETF will give you more diversification across regions, across geographical locations. So you'll have US, UK. You'll probably have a little bit of Europe. You'll probably have a little bit out in Asia and developed markets as well. So diversification is really, really key, man. Really, really key. If Biden gets in socially responsible ETFs, Dean, really, really good point with that. So, as you know, Trump isn't the most avid fan of, green investment or anything like that. If Biden gets in, there will be a lot of good green ESG kind of funds that will do very, very well off the back of that, because you will find immediately, I think he's already been saying it, they'll go back into the Paris Climate Accords and all this kind of stuff. So it will be very, very good for ESG investing, ethical investing, anything green. It will be really, really good for that. And if you can get something like that in an ETF, fantastic. Green energy and ethical investing, yeah, matters principle, perfect, thank you. Right, okay, Dean, easy money, BP, TUI, just leave it in there. Okay, let's actually talk about this, because Dean's actually mentioned something really, really good in there. He's got easy money. So you're looking at BP, TUI, like the recovery stocks, right? So one thing that I know for sure, and I've seen happen a number of times across my career, is when people start to begin investing in the markets and they invest in the recession, people invest in companies that have been around for a while, they're just at a discount right now. And the likes of them are, British Airways and IAG, TUI, BP, any company that that has been around for a very, very long time, where you go onto their stock price and you can see that they're trading lower than where they were before. Those are great companies to go and buy, because it's the same principle, right? It's the simple business principle of you buy low, you sell high. Unfortunately, investing is the only time where that tends not to happen. What tends to happen when people invest is they will buy high because everybody's at a rush and kind of getting excited about a particular stock. And then what they'll do is they'll sell low once the stock starts to trail off, because it might be going through a volatile period. It is the complete opposite of what you should be doing. So right now is a great opportunity to go and buy those companies that are big, the recovery stocks, if you will. Like, great opportunity, because if you just sit on them for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, we come out of this recession, you'll be sitting on a very, very handsome pot of money. And it's just about having that disciplining and actually understanding that this is going to be a long-term play, and not just kind of a quick return that you're going to get straight away. So really, really good point on there, Dean. Sean, what's your portfolio percentage in asset classes? Well, for a lot of mine, I'm high risk, mate. So I think for one of I've got one of them at about 60-70% equities, with the rest in bonds, property, and so on and so forth. Again, I need to be careful with the way I explain that, because that doesn't necessarily mean that you should go and do the same thing, Sean. So the important thing for you to bear in mind is your timeline. So what I was explaining before, your timeline. I'm not going to need my investments for 10, 15 years. So I'm happy to go 60-70% in equities, because I'm not going to need it for such a long time. If you're going to need it within 4 to 5 years, then really going 60-70% is bonkers. You really, really need to be reining it back, and you need to be using other asset classes. You need to be using bonds. You need to be using, property. You need to be using other assets to help you minimize and diversify your risk. Investing with 50, 60, 70% for 2-3 years is nuts, in my opinion. So please just bear that in mind. Dean, a mate of mine is in Nutmeg, so they're very, very good. I've heard great things about Nutmeg. Nutmeg were one of the ones that I really enjoyed doing the the review on, because the way they present the information is very, 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 very good. Really, really good. Drago, have you ever invested in any companies on Crowdcube? No, I have not, mate. Not invested in any companies on Crowdcube. Reason for that being is this. For me, call me old school. If you're investing on Crowdcube and stuff like that, and it's effectively investing in businesses where they're crowdfunding, you really need to read the documentation of what you're going to get in exchange for your investment. You really need to be very, very clear on that. And Moneybox is probably a prime example. They were recently crowdfunding. I explained this on, I think, the live before the last. I was considering that, but when you read through the prospectus, for me it just wasn't worth it, because there were loads of stipulations in there that obviously you're not getting, A class shares or anything like that. You're not getting preferential shares. But also there was a lot of language in there around, in order for you to realize a return from your investment, first and foremost, you can't just cash it in. You have to hold it until they decide to either sell or to float on the stock market. There was nothing in the prospectus that spoke exclusively to their plans to sell the business or float on the stock market. That was one thing that for me was a no-no. The other thing that for me was a no-no was that there was then a stipulation to say if they sold or they floated, they had to float or sell at a certain valuation before you got your money back. If they floated at a lower amount, so below the minimum, you got nothing. And for me, that was a deal breaker. So I don't personally invest on Crowdcube or anything like that. I think you just need to be mindful of what you're going into. I think long run, where is the wealth being created? It's been created in the stock market. So index funds, mutual funds, those kind of stuff is typically where I go, not with businesses that may only just be starting out or may just be looking for funding. Yes, they offer a really good opportunity. That isn't to say not to do it, but it's really, really important to understand that if you are going to do it, don't just put all of your money into that one thing. Try and make sure that you've got diversification, so you're putting only a portion of your money into that, then money elsewhere as well. So hope that makes sense. Okay, another question here. What's the best way to identify / fund recovery stocks? So listen, any company that's been hit by Brexit, by COVID, I was going to say Brexit, by COVID, so British Airways. So look at sectors specifically. Tourism, right? Taken a massive, massive, massive hit. Look at that. Look at anything where you've seen a huge reduction in terms of customers. So arguably, you could have a look at some of the cinemas, arguably, but you really, really need to select them carefully. I mean, I knew people who were buying Cineworld shares literally as everything was being closed down. I couldn't understand for the life of me why they were buying Cineworld shares. Couldn't understand for the life of me, because you have to understand how these companies operate and how these companies generate business. If you bought Cineworld shares back in April when everything was being locked down, thinking it might be a good buy, it was too premature in my view, because you've got to think about how do these companies make their money. They make money through films being produced, films being put out. If Hollywood's being shut down and nobody's producing any films, and it is likely that people are going to be like, listen, we're not going to release our movies this year because we spent $250 million to make it, we need to try and make sure our money gets back, then buying Cineworld is clearly a bad idea. But that's just an example. But you need to do research in terms of how does the company make money. You need to also understand, what is their financial state currently? Are they in dire straits right now? Do they have cash reserves? These are all the things that you need to understand. So look at sectors specifically that you know of that have suffered according to COVID. And once you've got the sectors, then try and find, if you're using Trading 212, you can use that as a very, very easy resource, or Hargreaves Lansdowne, you can just Google on the sectors, right? So hospitality sector, who are the biggest companies in the UK or the biggest companies in the world within that sector? And that way you can then shortlist and come up with a list of companies potentially that you could invest in. Hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. Okay, so Drago, I read the one for Moneybox and decided against it. Yeah, for me it was a deal breaker, mate. I was like, no, absolutely not. Not for me. especially if you couldn't get your money out if you needed it, or you couldn't just cash it in. And that's the whole thing about the stock market, right? I can invest money into an index fund, you can cash it in if you need to. If you invest in an ETF, you can cash it in if you need to. So with them, you couldn't. So you're putting the money in there, you really are taking that long-term view. But there were so many dependencies on potential outcomes of whether you'll get any return from it. So yeah. With the current climate of depression, are our investments safe considering financial tools? Okay, let me just start this again, Ibrahim. With the current climate of depression, are our investments safe considering financial tools that will affect our investments, such as inflation? Mate, that's a really, really, really good question. I think if you're invested in the market, you have to go back to why you were invested in the first place, and the key thing that matters the most when you're investing. And that is, you need to be taking a long-term view. This isn't short-termism. You have to take a long-term view. Now, inflation is where it is. The government monetary policy, they're trying to do their best in terms of controlling inflation. Unfortunately, one thing that we definitely can't do is we can't control any of that. We can't control what's going to happen with a potential no-deal Brexit, as we've been hearing this week. We can't control what is going to happen with either Joe Biden or Trump winning the election. Trust me, the markets will be volatile off the back of that. So are our investments safe? I think so, yes, because you're going to have some protection if companies were to go bust. You'll be covered under the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, so you'll get an element of protection there. But ultimately, I think one thing you need to acknowledge is if you are using Vanguard and people like that to invest your money, it is their job to ensure that, number one, the investment is run efficiently, effectively in any climate, and they will be paying investment managers and professionals very, very handsomely to ensure that they're doing that. So inflation and all of the stuff that we can talk about as being, things that can in fact possibly make our investments go down or go up, we have no control over that. That's part of the ride, right? It's a roller coaster. But I think this is where providers are really, really important. And if you are using a provider, do you have confidence in their skill set, in what they're doing, and why did you select that provider? This is why I say cost isn't everything. Like, people want to go low cost all the time. The reality is, if you're an index fund, you're not going to get the input of an investment professional per se, not on a daily basis anyway. Most passives will literally just track the index. If the index falls, the index falls. Now, passives are great if the markets are going up. Passives are really, really bad if the markets are falling. So depending on your investment goal, your timeline, how long you're investing for, should dictate your investment strategy. And that is whether you go for passives or whether you have an element of somebody intervening to help you review these investments. This stuff can be so vast and so far-reaching in terms of how things work, but ultimately it comes down to your personal circumstance, what you are looking to achieve, what your goals are, what your journey looks like, what your investment time horizon is. This is all the stuff that I talk about in the investment course, and this is the foundational stuff that's so important. It's not just about picking the cheapest provider that you can find out there. It's not about that. If right now in a recession, if the only way is up, then passives sound like a great idea. The trouble with that is we don't know whether the investments or the markets are going to go down further from here. We have no idea. Hopefully they don't. So it's really about making sure that, number one, you're comfortable with your investment term, you're comfortable with the level of risk that you're taking, you're adequately diversifying your investments as well to make sure you've not got all of your eggs in one basket, and ultimately buckling up and literally just enjoying the ride as much as you possibly can, knowing that this is a long-term play. It's not a short-term play in any stretch of the imagination. So I hope that answers the question, Ibrahim. If not, let me know. Nikki, have you heard of Naga trading? I've not heard of Naga trading. That's a new one. Please give me some context, mate. Is that one that I should be looking at? I'll tell you what, guys. I have had so much backlash from talking about cash effects, and it's ridiculous. It really, really is ridiculous. So much backlash. And look, all I try to do when I look at these kind of things is kind of give my professional view, having been in the industry for such a long time, and just highlighting that, guys, you need to be careful about this. And let me know if Naga is something that I need to be looking at and maybe do a video on. Please do let me know. My whole goal here is to keep people safe. I mean, someone was saying to me the other day that, you're stopping people from earning money. It's like, well, not really, no, because at the end of the day, across YouTube, across Instagram and my mailing list, I've probably got 10,000 people. And I could quite easily say, you know what, guys, Cash FX seems like a really good idea. You might be able to make a little bit of money and do all the stuff that they promise you. I could probably make a shed load of money from that, but that's not what I'm all about. I'm here to use my experience to help people. If there's something that I wouldn't do myself or I'm not comfortable in doing myself, then I definitely wouldn't do it. I'll recommend it to other people to do. Now, I have actually bought into Cash FX because I want to see what's going on internally, because I have an idea of what I think they're doing, but validating it is going to be difficult. But having a look inside gives me a little bit more validation around they're doing what I think they're doing. And it's not something that I would recommend to you guys still, because they are not regulated by the FCA. You have no protections by the FCA. They are carrying out 2 regulated activities that require regulation, and they're saying that they don't need it, and that's just not true. So let me know if Naga is something that I need to be looking at as well, and we can go from there. The Dean, do you think FANG is too powerful? Seeing that it's 25% off the GDP and the S&P 500? Potentially. Potentially. I mean, it's hard to say. I haven't actually followed that specifically myself in the last week or two, so I can't really give any informed kind of view, knowing that I've not actually had a look at it. It's something I can have a look at, but it's one of those things where you need to look at all factors whenever you're looking at anything to invest in. That's just the reality of things at the end of the day. And ultimately, you just need to make sure that you're comfortable. And again, whenever you're investing, I say this all the time, we don't go and just take guesses and be like, oh, we're just going to put money into this one. No, that's not what this is all about. Like, you have to take calculated risks. That's the whole point of investing, is taking calculated risks. Ibrahim has said on here, online companies, nanotechnology, AI, Amazon, Netflix. Yeah, those are good companies. I mean, look, they're all tech pretty much. So that's only one sector. So, there are some good gains. I think tech has done phenomenally this year. I mean, ridiculous. I mean, Amazon, look at just Tesla, Amazon, the like. Apple have done really, really well as well. Growth within that sector has been amazing. But again, it's just one sector. So if anything happens, regulation or something like that, what then happens to all of your money if you have it all in that one basket? So diversification, again, is key. J-Man, I can't find a broker that lets you invest your USA dividends automatically back into the USA share to compound your growth. Can this be done if you live in the UK? You should have an option to reinvest your dividends, mate. Who are you using? You should have the option to reinvest your dividends from wherever, be that from the States or UK companies. So it depends on who you're using. Even on Trading 212, I'm pretty sure there's a auto reinvest. There is actually on Trading 212. There's an auto reinvest your dividends. So there'll be loads on there, but Trading 212 is definitely one that you can do. I know that you can do it with Hargreaves Lansdown. You should be able to definitely do it with Vanguard as well. Fidelity, be able to do it with those guys as well. The COVIDs are hot, Ionic hot in the moment, but a gamble maybe S&G, yes. There's a lot of money going into the markets, e.g. no interest rates and zero dividends, so people trying to make money elsewhere. You know what, on Tuesday, I'm actually going to be talking about the negative interest rates, because that is looking like it's going to be more and more of a possibility as of this week, especially with the Bank of England going out asking companies how they actually might cope. So that video will cover everything that you need to know, things that are worthwhile looking at, things to do as well, because with negative interest rates, it could get a little bit sticky and people are going to want to know where they can put their money. So the video on Tuesday will explain that. Can you please explain year-to-date trading returns? So, right, year-to-date is basically is when you have a look at investment from a particular time. So let's just say you were looking at it from October 18th, right? So your year-to-date will be from whenever the investment was either started to that date or from a period to that date. So it's year to that date. Now, typically speaking, if you're going to be looking at returns on investment, so I would typically look at returns on a cumulative basis on a year by year. that will give you a good snapshot. So you're looking at defined periods, so it might be January 1st to January 1st, returns within that period of time, or a 12-month period, or a running 12-month period. That will really give you a good idea. But year to date is typically the performance up until the date that you're looking at the investment right there and there, typically. Would you invest in Chinese stocks? NIO is the one right. Hang on, let me just get this right. 1 second, mate. Investing stocks. NIO is on the rise like crazy, and I think China is about to burst in terms of economic growth. They look like a good punt, mate. I mean, a few people have asked me this question. I don't hold it personally, but that isn't to say that you shouldn't. Again, because it is a Chinese company, and the Chinese do have a little bit of a monopoly on their own market, and that's one of the reasons why the whole trade war thing happened, because the Chinese market is absolutely huge. It is humongous, and other countries don't have access to that market, or it's difficult for other countries to get access to that market because they like to keep everything within their borders. So with them trying to get into, I think they're doing electric cars, if memory serves me right, the market there is huge. And yes, Tesla does have a little bit of a march, but they're not a company that you could potentially write off just because Tesla are also manufacturing cars out there. The Chinese market is absolutely huge, and they definitely like buying from each other. So it could be a good company, but with all things, you need to do the research on the company itself, the product, how they're going to make money, their forecasts, all that kind of good stuff, management team. You need to have a look at all of that before you go and plow a lot of money. So research is really, really key. Like I said, it's not about just putting money into companies. You're taking a calculated risk. You need to understand what you're actually doing. So guys, have I covered all of the questions in here? I think I have. Yes, I have. Okay, cool. So just signing this off. Drago, Jason, thank you so much again for joining the memberships. The wallpapers and all that kind of stuff will be loaded in there tomorrow. And I will also ping something into that community as of tomorrow as well, around how we give you access to the investment course. All of the chapters in the investment course are actually available on a playlist. So I'll send you a link to the playlist, and we'll have a schedule as well where we will go through each of the chapters on a 14-week basis. Well, 1 week by week over 14 weeks. And that will give you the opportunity to be able to ask me as many questions as you want around, where you start investing, what you're investing in, companies, all that kind of stuff. And you'll also get access to the Discord group as well. So my big hope with this is that within the Discord group is to essentially collate a group of people that are just really serious about investing, building wealth, all that kind of stuff, where I can lend my expertise and build a community where everybody's on the same page, everybody's trying to lead towards the same goal, and we can all help each other out, all move together as a unit, as a team, as a community within that Discord group. So all of that we posted into the community section tomorrow. I really do appreciate you two guys joining. Thank you so much. Again, guys, if you haven't caught this at the beginning, there's a video that I posted at 8 o'clock. Go and have a look at that. It's a memberships facility that YouTube have allowed me to have access to because of the numbers and how the channel is growing. And it's two-tiered. There's a savers membership. There's an investors membership. You get like emojis. You get badges for when you comment on here, and there's a lot of other things in there as well, so check that out. Again, it doesn't change anything that I'm going to be producing here on the channel. The videos will still come out on the Tuesday and Friday at 5 p.m. It will still be free. We're still going to continue to have these live Q&As, but if you are a part of the investors membership group, you will also get additional live streams just like this one. But what I will be doing with those ones is I will be bringing in Forex experts, I'll be bringing in mortgage experts, I'll be bringing in investment managers, I'll be bringing in people that I know that can add value to you guys, pension experts, for example, to really kind of like give targeted answers and look at targeted situations in a little bit more depth than I can do here, because these guys will be in a position where they could, if they wanted to, give you advice and speak from that advice point because they're licensed to. I'm not licensed to give advice, although I'm qualified as a financial advisor. I don't have the FCA registered to give advice. So that's the reason why all of my content that I produce is for educational purposes, and I always have to state that phrase of, I've got to be careful that I'm not giving you advice, but I can certainly give you things to think about. So within that investors membership group, you'll have those live Q&As. I'll hopefully do them once a month, where we can really get into a topic, really get down to the detail of it. So go and check it out. If it's something that you'd love to support, I'll really, really appreciate it, because it will just help me build the channel and help me focus my time fully into this, to provide more value. But like I said, if this isn't your bag, the videos will still come out. We'll still do these live Q&As, and I really do appreciate you guys, because I tell you what, the engagement and the growth has been absolutely amazing. You become a member. If you look at where this video is, you should have the join button, and if you click on the join button, it will bring up the two options that I've just discussed there. You have the Savers members and you have the Investors membership group as well. So it will give you all of the information, all of the perks that you get with it as well. So if you want to check that out, that's great. I really do appreciate it. But guys, it is now 10 past 10. This one's a little bit quicker than it was the last time. I do appreciate you. I've actually got to go and actually record a podcast. So I've got a long night ahead. I appreciate you guys for joining. Thank you so much. Until next time. So the next live is going to be on it's going to be 2 weeks from now, which means it is going to be on the 1st of November. 1st of November. So again, guys, thank you so much for joining. Appreciate your time. Have a good evening.